We have this special guest who is a YC alumni, as co-founder of a company called Safepay, Mr. Ziyad. What does YCOM do? Essentially, for a startup founder who does get in.
All of the top startups that are now huge companies in the world. So Stripe, Coinbase, Airbnb, Dropbox, DoorDash, etc. You name it. Chances are that they went through YC back in the early days. So
Getting into YC is the thing, and that would guarantee success to your startup.
if YC is the start, then that's definitely not the destination.
वेलकम टू एवरीडे पॉडकास्ट लेट्स टॉक. दिस इज योर होस्ट मोहम्मद अफान और आज हम बात कर रहे हैं अबाउट स्टार्टअप्स एंड स्टार्टअप कल्चर एंड वी हैव दिस हाउ वी एज अ स्टार्टअप यू कैन वर्क and start your startup in this startup journey. So probably a lot of startup words. Before we move on, we have this special guest who is a YC alumni, as co-founder of a company called Safepay, Mr. Ziyad. Can you introduce yourself to other people who don't know you?
Sure. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me. So as Afan mentioned, my name is Ziyad Parekh. I'm the co-founder of Safepay. But myself, I'm a software engineer by background. I did my high school, my first part of my educational journey from Pakistan, in Karachi only, and then went to the US for my undergrad. After that, worked at a bunch of different tech companies in the US before getting the itch to start my own thing for the Pakistani market. I always knew I wanted to build something for Pakistan and come back here where my family is and everyone I know is over here. Took that leap in 2020, and alhamdulillah, we were the first fintech from Pakistan to get accepted into Y Combinator, which is the famous startup accelerator based out of Silicon Valley. And after we graduated, we decided to pack up and move back to Karachi. And I've been here ever since, working on building payment infrastructure for Pakistan.
Right. So, you told him the introduction. You gave us the introduction, but I wanted to ask you about your company Safepay. What does it do? How does it work? And how did you founded it?
Sure. So Safepay, essentially, at Safepay, we build payments infrastructure for businesses in Pakistan that essentially allows them to make and receive payments from their customers, whether they're local or international, through either a credit or a debit card, or very soon we're also going to be launching Rust. And the idea for Safepay came about when I would travel back and forth from the US to visit my family, and I'd always realized that you can't shop online the same way as you could in the US, and that always bothered me. Stripe didn't exist in Pakistan, PayPal doesn't exist in Pakistan, and businesses didn't have the right tools to allow them to accept payments online. And I figured that's something I could solve. So I went back, built it as a side project, essentially. Didn't really think too much about it at the time. But when we launched back in 2019, on like a Facebook group, essentially, it was called Startups Pakistan or something. And we got some early adopters, and through those early adopters, the word about Safepay kind of spread organically. And that led us to working with around 250, 300 customers at the time. And on the back of that, we applied to Y Combinator. And Y Combinator was something that I'd been a huge fan of. I was following it as a software engineer. It's something that the Hacker News, if any of your audience knows about it, it's like a website that posts like the top technical blogs and cool things that people are working on. And I used to follow that a lot. And obviously Y Combinator is a startup accelerator that you can apply to. So I applied with my co-founder. The first time we got rejected. And then, we went back to the drawing board, figured out, what was wrong with our application and worked through it. Second time we got accepted. And that, I think, were the best 3 months that we could have had for Safepay. And then all of our learnings that we got from YC, we kind of took those and we backed up and we moved back to Pakistan and we launched it properly. And now, alhamdulillah, we're one of the largest online payment gateways or payment acquirers in the market.
Right. I agree because I recently ordered a couple of things and I saw the the slip that it said pay via so Safepay. So that was something that I said, huh, the Safepay does exist. I used to think that these are from bank channels mostly, but the Safepay does exist, and a lot of the startups or a lot of e-commerce stores does have Safepay payment gateway integrated into their websites. Um, so you talked about a lot about Ycom. A lot of people who are starting watching the episode, we talked about we want to build a startup, right? That's the whole theme of the episode. And so let's talk about Ycom. You talk about your getting into Ycom, but what does Ycom do essentially for a startup founder who does get in?
Okay, so Y Combinator is the preeminent startup accelerator in the world, and of course, it has a tremendous track record. It's incubated all of the top startups that are now huge companies in the world. So Stripe, Coinbase, Airbnb, Dropbox, DoorDash, etc. You name it. Chances are that they went through YC back in the early days. So you if you're accepted, obviously their application process, they claim that their acceptance rate is lower than Harvard's, for instance.
Indeed.
So if you get accepted, I think so. It's a 3-month program that runs twice a year. At least that's when we were there, and you are partnered with a YC partner who will be your mentor and your coach throughout the 3 months. And your 3-month journey is you kind of spend it either iterating on your product. If you got in with an idea, it's build your product, talk to early customers, find early customers, anything you can do to either find product market fit, or get your early customers, get early revenue through the door. And it culminates in this event called Demo Day. On Demo Day, you are you pitch your startup for 60 seconds in front of an audience of investors and angels and VCs and everything, and if they like what you've built and how you've pitched it, they'll reach out to you to invest in your startup. So that is essentially the crux of what YC does. And then obviously after you graduate, you are part of this incredible network of some of the smartest founders in the world, and they're all very helpful because they're all kind of going through the same thing. So you kind of stay in touch and help each other out in different aspects. So it's kind of like a university alumni network as well that you get access to. But that's Y Combinator. How we applied our do you want me to talk about our application?
Definitely. People who are applying, how to get in. Firstly, I think that's the first stage that we need to get in.
I mean, I think I'll tell you about my experience personally. So I first applied as a solo founder working on Safepay, and filled out the application. There's tons of resources online that teach you how to craft your application in a way that will pass the first round of screenings that they have. And if you do pass, the second round is an interview, either in person or online. So the first time, I passed the screening of the application, and I got invited for an interview in person in Mountain View in their offices. I went in thinking that, you're passed through the first round. It's going to be like a cakewalk from here on out. I just have to tell them what I'm working on and the opportunity in the market, and why I think I'm the right person to work on this, and hopefully they'll accept me. But when you get in, it's like it was me and then these 4 people in front of me, kind of like 1v4, and I was humbled very quickly by the questions that they asked, and quickly realized that I didn't know anything about why I was doing this, or how I would do this, or how I would succeed. So as expected, after that, I got a rejection email fairly quickly. And while that should have been kind of demoralizing and, like, oh, you're not working on the right thing. Part of me knew that, obviously people were using Safepay at the time, and I felt like I was solving a real problem. I just didn't do the interview very well. So this time I picked a co-founder who and that's very important. I think you need someone who will go through this journey with you. And together we redid our YC application, and we really kind of thought about the whole interview process in terms of what questions they could ask us, who would answer that question, how we would answer it, how we would go back and forth between each other when we were answering questions, and really scripted everything in terms of what the universe of questions that they could have asked us. And by this time, Safepay was also growing, and we had gotten more traction. And I think Pakistan, and luckily for us, I think it was COVID. So digital payments, I think, and COVID were like a match. So there was that wave that we were riding, or everyone was riding. But I think failing the first time and learning from that failure really kind of made me self-improve and then increase my chances of doing it the second time. So Y Combinator encourages that, right? Like, they tell you, it doesn't matter if we've rejected you once or twice or thrice. Like, that those previous rejections do not hurt your chances of, being accepted in later applications. So much so that before I decided to apply again, they sent me an email saying that, hey, we know that, the first time you applied didn't work out, but applications are open again in case you're interested in applying. So I was like, might as well. What else am I doing? It was COVID. So did that. And this time we were ready. And I think as long as you're prepared, I think as long as you're humble about what you're doing and you're genuine, I think you'll be able to get in.
Well, again, a lot of do start, and you talked about the acceptance rate, and I think after you got in, I think the next batch, Abhi Microfinance Bank, they got in as well the following year, and then I think Crepemart also got in, and then we've seen a lot of startups do getting in, started getting into YC, and but I just want to say, you talked about the demo day and the import, you get to meet a lot of investors. YC itself does take an equity stake in your company as well, and then a lot of investors, you do pitch to global investors there. Overall, the experience that you've gone through, do you think was it worth the deal? That did it make sense having that YC background?
For us, yes. I think we were two guys that didn't really know anything about running a business or raising funds. I was a software engineer by background, so I knew how to build things. My co-founder was a lawyer, perfect for Safepay in terms of like financial regulations and stuff like that. But around fundraising, pitching, all of the things that you really need, like operations and stuff, we had no idea how to do that. Added to the fact that we were building something for Pakistan, and if you go back to 2020, Pakistan wasn't on the map from a startup perspective, from like a VC's mind perspective. They were looking at like obviously India, China, America, even the UAE and GCC weren't on their mind at that point. So we really needed to be able to get like that stamp of approval from someone like YC that says that, all right, YC is trusting these guys to build something for Pakistan, and YC sees something in the Pakistani market, so maybe we should too. Because if you think about it, a lot of VCs are like, they have so much going on, they just tend to follow trends, and if they see one person doing it, they'll be like, all right, let's jump on. So for us, I think it really did help. For others, it may not make sense to give up that much equity in your company for something like that. But at the end of the day, I think if you own a small portion of a very large company as opposed to a large portion of a very small company, the former is definitely where you want to be.
Right. I think a lot of people that are applying to YC, I see them, getting into YC is the thing, and that would guarantee success to your startup. I do feel having YC does have a benefit, but I feel is not the destination itself. But I've seen a lot of startups having YC is just like, now we have been there, now we're minted.
Yeah.
Probably that's not true.
No, no, it's not true. I think even YC doesn't tell you that it's true. There's a YC, if you think about it from your own journey's perspective, is the start, right? Like if you get in, that's some validation that what you're working on is in the right direction. It may be that it's not, and you end up pivoting to building something completely different, which is also fine. But at least it's the first step. And if you're trying to build a business, your startup has to evolve into no longer being a startup. It has to become like a big, business that's, generational.
True.
That's like the dream.
Yeah.
So if YC is the start, then that's definitely not the end. It's definitely not the destination. So I don't think that's the right way to think about it. You should think of it as like a stepping stone in your journey to build something that will outlast, hopefully, you.
Right. So again, you have built a startup in a regulated space, highly regulated space. But what's the number one challenge that you feel apart from the regulation itself?
Yeah, I mean, I think regulation is daunting when you first see it from the outside, right? Like it has a stigma of it being a challenge, and now you're married to a regulator who's going to breathe down your neck every time and slow you down. And sure, I mean, the regulator's job is to protect the environment and the ecosystem that it's trying to build, and they set rules that you have to play by. But at the same time, it opens a lot of doors and opportunities for you than if you weren't regulated. So by being regulated, you develop a very good relationship with the regulator, which is important. And you can approach them with new things that you want to do, new business models that you want to explore, and new products that you want to launch in your space. And because they've regulated you, they have that comfort that, these guys, we've vetted them, and they're a good team, and they're honest, trustworthy people. And I think in our industry, at least in like financial services, trust and credibility and integrity are like the main kind of thing. So if you're able to prove that by getting, again, the stamp of approval that you're regulated and someone's vetted you, then it opens a lot more doors. And sure, it comes with the overhead of compliance and reporting and all of these kinds of things. But I think those, even if Safepay wasn't regulated, we would have had to have in any case. So if we're doing all of the work, might as well also just get the license with it.
I just wanted your input. Gone through the regulation, taxation, a lot of these challenges are there. A startup founder that is watching this episode right now, what are the kind of advice that you want to give him before we start?
Oh, I mean, I think like none of the things happening at a macro level should influence you right at this stage. If you're a startup founder, nothing. You shouldn't even care about what's happening at like a political level, on a macroeconomic level. What are the inflation numbers? That's all secondary to what you should be focusing right now, which is what problem are you solving? Right, that should be your main question that you ask yourself. And if you know what the answer is, then just build it. You should. That is if you have the skills. If you don't have the skills to build it, find someone with the skills to partner with to become a co-founder, and together you guys should build it. Obviously now we live in the world of AI. We have vibe coding, and describe what you want to build, and AI will build it for you. And you can do everything. You can run a business as a solo founder if you wanted to with the help of AI. But yeah, don't let other things distract you at this point. If you're passionate about something, if you're curious, And if you think that what you can build can help other people solve their problems, then build it.
Mhm. I think, yeah, I think that's a great advice to all these startup founders. I'll just give you my 2 cents. It's that a lot of people start building companies because they feel, I'm tired of doing a job and said I'm going to build a business. And probably that's the best worst idea. If you think your job is tiring, your business would actually, you would work yourself to death at this point. And I think, and the other way is that, you should not go towards, I want to build a business. It should, focus on, I want to solve a problem. It may become a business, it may not, but you might solve a problem for yourself or for your company that you're already working on. So that would be a better way to start at it, rather than look at, yeah, I'm going to start this business, and I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going to start a business.
Yeah. No, I agree, because I think business, or like the concept of a business is very heavy. It comes with a lot of responsibilities and people management and finances and all of these kinds of things that, to be honest, very few people probably like dealing with. But when you think of it as like a project, that immediately like lightens the load. It's something that you do at your own terms, at your own time. It's like something you're still interested in building. It's like a cool little side project that you're working on. And like you said, if you launch it and you can make the life of one person better, and then because they're able to do something with what you've built that they weren't able to do before, that feeling is like really special. And then that one person will most likely tell other people about it who have similar problems, and then you'll start to see this like snowball effect of people starting to use your project. And then you're like, okay, now if I'm going to start charging people for it, then I have to think about starting a business. And that's when you start a company, and you do it based on need, as opposed to like, that's the first thing I'm going to do.
True. Right. So I think that was quite an insightful episode. I think we talked a lot about startups in general, and all those who are planning to start for YC or starting in Pakistan, whether you want to go into a sandbox situation or a different regulation that you want. I hope you can start as soon as possible. आप उम्मीद है आपको ये एपिसोड अच्छा लगा. मिलते हैं अगले एपिसोड. अल्लाह हाफिज.